Civil Media.
Has North Macedonia met the recommendations of your organization from the previous election processes? And could you tell us what are the main challenges ahead of the presidential elections in our country?
Good afternoon. Thank you for your question. Maybe at first, if you allow me to start with telling what actually an ODIHR, an Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights Observation Mission, does in a country. We just arrived 3 weeks ago on the invitation of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This is the 18th election observation in the country, and it is done because North Macedonia is a member of the OSCE, and with that they agreed to invite our organization to see and to observe their elections if they are organized in line with international standards for democratic elections. And of course we also look at the national legislation and to see if the elections are organized in line with the country's own legislation. Where it comes to the recommendations, it's too early yet. As I mentioned, we just arrived 3 weeks ago, and only at the end of our observation we will have been able to look into previous recommendations, and then again we will reflect in our publications on those recommendations and if they are indeed implemented, and we will have again new recommendations for the country. But for now it's too early to give you a direct answer to your question.
And how important is the election observation for ODIHR and for Macedonia? North Macedonia, sorry.
I think an election observation is important. As I mentioned, the country also committed itself to invite our organization to have their elections observed, but also in the field. We have a core team of analysts. We meet with all the stakeholders involved in the capital, but next to that also our long-term observers in the field speak with the stakeholders regarding the elections in their area of observation. And what they give back to us is that indeed for them it is important to have again the election observation mission in the country, to also see how the country progresses in relation to democratic elections, and for future recommendation, to know what to look at and what to prioritize to further improve the elections.
So you are already all over Macedonia, your teams?
Yes. The core team based in Skopje started 3 weeks ago, and our long-term observers started 2 weeks ago after a briefing here in the capital. And on a daily basis we receive information from the region, and we provide them with information from Skopje. And closer to the elections we will have up to 250 short-term observers. They will then be responsible to observe, on the one hand, the campaign silence the day before the election day, but also to observe the election day from the opening, voting, counting, and also the tabulation. So altogether the ODIHR election observation mission will observe the pre-election period, election day, and also the post-election period. So in a way it covers the whole election process, and of course in the event of a second round we also will stay in the country and will then have our preliminary findings and conclusions presented after the process.
What would your messages and recommendations for the decision makers and stakeholders ahead of the presidential elections in North Macedonia? What are your messages of ODIHR and yours?
Again, it's a bit too early to say that, because if we would intervene in the process, and our mandate is not to advise or to intervene, but to observe. So the organization of the elections is for the authorities. That's their responsibility. We observe, and only after election day we will present in a press conference our preliminary findings. And then 2 or 3 months after the whole process, we publish a final report, which then also has the recommendations for future elections.
So you don't report any irregularities during the campaign? No.
We will have an interim report. It will be published on the 5th of April, but it is more a descriptive report. If there are violations, then that will be included in our preliminary findings and conclusions, published on the 22nd of April, the day after the elections, and again the day after the second election day.
Civil Media